All right. Am I correct in assuming that you can see today's email?
Yes.
Okay. So as it says, today is day 10. We're going to do three things today. The first thing is I'm going to go over my copy from start to finish of the Contact Manager app. I'm not going to type anything in. I'm just going to show you what I did. All right. And after we do that, we'll go over case study 4.1 together. And I did send you what you need for the context class. So the seed data, unless you put it in already. And finally, I'm going to go over hot number 1. Now, most people did pretty well on this. Some people did extremely well on this. A couple people struggled on this. And that's the only reason that I'm going to go over it. All right. And just point, what I plan on doing is stopping the tape and then start. I'm going to show you the answers to a test. I'm going to send that one out as a private YouTube video, so you'll get an invite to that. All right. Tomorrow will be the hands-on test. It will be sort of along the lines of 4.1. Now, that said, I'll give you all the seed data, and there's only 2 tables. All right. But some of the stuff that we'll look at today, you will be expected to understand for the test tomorrow. All right. And then Wednesday and Thursday, we'll go over chapter 6. So we'll probably spend Wednesday just taking our time and going over it, and we'll see where we are. I mean, if there's time, we'll do maybe an exercise or whatever for it. We'll just see how it goes. All right. So I believe just about everybody 3 written tests, labs, and homework. So I don't think that is any kind of an issue with anybody. Now for 4 and 5, because a couple people had said, hey, I was working on the Contact Manager, I had nothing but problems with it, etc. The only thing that you really had to turn in for yesterday were the written tests. If you finished both the Contact Manager and the tip calculator debugging, fine, not a problem. I'll grade them. But otherwise, that stuff won't be due until next Sunday. All right. And then finally, as I mentioned previously, I attached my Sports Pro data file that's right here, just so you wouldn't have to worry about it. I mean, it's around 300 lines long. All right. So you wouldn't have to worry about keying all that stuff. Okay. So with that said, there's a few things by now that at least my hope is they make sense and we don't have to talk about them anymore. And what I mean is I'm hoping against hope, maybe, that everybody is able to go in and do their tools, NuGet package manager, and manage package for solution. And you're able to go in there and add those 2 packages. Like I said, I don't think that's asking too much anymore. All right. I mean, we can go over it again, if not with you, Grant, but if somebody has questions on it, that's fine. All right. But I like I said, my hope is that by now that makes sense, because you're going to be using that in most, if not every program that we do from now on. In much the same way, I'm also taking for granted that once you come in and you create your data model classes, all right, under your models folder, and you create your context model, that you're able again to go in and again just way through the NuGet package manager, but this time through the package manager console, and you're able to go in and do your add hyphen migration with a migration name, and then update hyphen database. Like I said, I'm not trying to talk down to anyone, but my hope is that by now that stuff is just making sense to you. All right. And the way that you do things after that, in many ways, is going to be up to you. And what I mean is, if you notice on your screen here, the first thing that I've done is I brought up the app settings.json file. Now, if I do this first and I start referring to contact context, I may or may not get an error. I don't remember if I do or not. All right. And the other thing, And Grant, you weren't the reason I had emailed you, and thanks again for getting back to me, was that another student had the same problem as you. Now, if for all of you, when you're working on this, if you get, this is what I told you to put in because that should be your local server. All right. Now, if you look on here, I've actually got two of them. I've got the one I just showed you, which is my local server, and then another one that looks just like it, but it starts with, or it has project models in it. Now, Grant, unless I'm mistaken, this is the one you had to use, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know why anyone would have to do that. Now, James, who had some problems with this, he told me what he did was he literally uninstalled and reinstalled SQL Server, I believe. And when he did that, then this one came back. Now, that's pretty extreme, so I'm not saying you have to do that, but I do want to make sure that in the future, that what you did to make that work continues to work. That's all. So again, with the context, this is a name you give it. All right. So we're adding our connection string here. And as I've mentioned previously, it is totally legal, for lack of better words, to have more than one database that your program is working with. And that's the reason it says strings, because you can, if you need it, have multiple contexts in there for multiple databases. Virtually everything, if not everything, we do this semester will just be via a single database. So again, that's your server. And as mentioned, you may have to change yours, massage it around, maybe put that other one in there, etc. After that comes the name of your database. After that comes your trusted connection. And after that comes your multiple result sets. Okay. And again, my suggestion is if you get it to work with one of these databases, what I might do if I were you would be to take these lines here, copy them to the clipboard, and put them into a file someplace. Then the only thing you should have to change after that is the name of your database. All right. So you'll come back into the app settings.json file. All right. You will add after the allowed host, you'll just come in and you'll add all this. All right. It's just a suggestion. I've had people who've done that in the past. Some people are like, no, I'll just type it in myself. Either way is fine. All right. Then that said, under your program.cs file, and I don't know if I mentioned this last time, that's why I'm saying it now. Down at the bottom, make sure for this example that you add the slug. And the next chapter that we go over in the book, starting Wednesday, chapter 6, is on routing. Typically, you're going to have more than one route, especially after you'll typically have more than one route, especially as these applications get more and more complex. But this right here, the only thing that we did in here was to add this. And again, since it's the default, what this says is if we leave off the name of a controller, it will default to the home controller. If we leave off the name of an action, it'll default to index. All right. And it also says adding an ID is optional. That's the question mark. In the same way, adding the slug is optional. All right. And then finally in here, this is the other thing that you have to add. All right. Kind of a pain in the butt, but I took an online class with this guy once named Brad Schiff, and it was a really good class. And it was he talked about HTML and some advanced stuff, some advanced CSS and some advanced JavaScript. And then he started talking about front end and back end stuff. And he started to get into some back end stuff. And he told everybody, he said, now type in these 3 lines. So we typed them in, and he got done and he said, I can't even really tell you what they do. They're kind of like template code or boilerplate code. They're just stuff that you have to add to make the program work. He said, that's not a good explanation, but he said, it's the best one I can give you. And I'd say pretty much the same thing over what you see in blue right here. So you want to put it in, add this DB context after your add controller with views. And supposedly what this means right here, the builder.services.add controller with views, is it means we are doing an MVC application. All right. And the next thing, again, that's all in blue, this is just setting up our context. That's the best thing I can tell you. And again, the idea behind the context is the context is kind of, the context file is kind of a conduit between your model classes and SQL Server. So it's basically gives you the opportunity to talk with both of them. And again, I'm not saying that's the best explanation, but that's the best one I can offer for you right now. All right. So next, I always like to go in and do my models. All right, we had a category model in here, which was almost remarkably simple. All right, and also I've mentioned this before. We can leave this off. If we leave it off, we may or may not get, there you go. We may or may not get this, which just, as it says, non-nullable. Consider declaring the property as nullable. And remember, there's 3 ways you can do this. You can come here and put in a question mark. All right, or you can do what I had done before, which is to say equal string dot empty. All right, or you can just set it equal to the actual empty string. Now, if you don't do this, let's just say you do this one. Do not put anything at the end of the line, not even a semicolon. All right. This again is a nullable operator, and all it means is that it is legitimate to not have anything in there. Now, that almost seems counterintuitive because wait a minute, it's a name. Wouldn't you want to put a name in there? Well, we could put required there if we wanted to. All right. So that's that one. And in fact, I think I'm just going to set it back to the way it was. So like that, which means I can get rid of the question mark here. And again, what you do in there, the way you do it is a matter of personal preference. All right. So with all that, since I made a couple changes, I just saved it again. And let's go to the contact. Now, this was a much more complex, this is a much more complex model than the category one is. Okay. By now, hopefully everybody is cool with in here, you know, the fact that again, when you've got ID in there, it really should be at the end. I know somebody had contacted me and said they were having problems and even tried putting ID contact. No, it should always be whatever ID. Some people make every one of these fields, they just call them ID. I don't like that because then it gets a little bit confusing when you're working with multiple tables and they all have the same name in there. All right. But again, that's my opinion. What I want you to do is I want these to work for you. And whatever works for you and makes the most sense, that's what you should be using. I'm cool with that. All right. Then as you can see here, as we move up, we've got 4 straight fields, each of which is a string, each of which is required. All right. Even though they've all been initialized to string.empty. And again, hopefully taking a look at that, that just makes sense. All right. String fields really, I'm trying to think of a time where a string field might have some kind of a range, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to have it make, unless, for example, maybe you had a password field and you wanted to make sure that it was a minimum of 12 characters or something like that. Or even sometimes what people will do that with a first and last name, each has got to be at least 2 characters or whatever. We weren't asked to do anything like that here. All right. Then, and this field became a pain in the butt for me, this organization field, and we're going to talk more about it in a little bit. But that field, technically, not even technically, we are told that particular field is optional. Well, the way my program runs right now, unless I put something in there, all right, it does not allow me to go in and add, and I don't know why. All right, and I looked at it. I went back and looked at the authors, and theirs was different than mine, but not that different. And theirs worked, and I kept trying to think, well, what did they do that I didn't do? And I didn't. If they did do something I didn't do, I didn't notice what it was. All right. Then we've got our foreign key, which was again our category ID. This may be ridiculous. All right. And I even looked at the authors. I think the author made theirs 100,000. I don't know why you'd ever have that many kinds of categories, but to me, 100 seemed plenty big. All right. And again, that is our foreign key. So we're grabbing that from our other table. Also from the other table, we're going to eventually need to use this name field. All right. Since we want to use that, we're bringing in this whole thing. And you'll notice that I put a different decorator at the top, and that is validate never. All right. And by putting that in there, what that validate never means is whether there's something in there or not something in there, whether it meets criteria or doesn't meet criteria, on our end right here, we're not even checking that. All right. And that, again, that's the best way that I can put it to you. All right. And then finally, we come in here and they call this a property, and I guess it is. But I look at it more as being almost like a mini method. And again, what are we doing? We're saying if the first name and or the last name have spaces in it, all right, because we want to make this a friendly URL. So we're doing two things. First, we're replacing blank spaces that usually come out on a URL as %20. We're replacing those with hyphens. Next, we're making the entire first name and the entire last name lowercase. All right. So hopefully looking at all that, that makes sense. All right. So that was these two. So let's take a quick look here at the context file. Again, I left that error view model in here, even though I'm not using it. So here's our context. Again, this is just one of those things that, for lack of better words, you're best off familiarizing yourself with. All right, such as, well, after you brought in Microsoft.EntityFrameworkCore.Tools and Microsoft.EntityFrameworkCore.SQL Server, you can then bring in this file. Once you bring in that file, you're able to say that whatever your context class is, that it inherits from DB context. You're also able then to go in and set up the constructor, which basically says if there are any options, and I've never used any, but if there are any options, they're going to be handled by the parent. So in other words, if we pass any options into here, they're going to be handled in here. All right. Then we set up our DB set, or in this case, both DB sets. The order in which you put these in does not seem to matter. I played around with it. And like I said, it didn't seem to matter. So you'll notice when I declare the properties, the contacts and categories, I did them contacts first, then categories. However, when I did them in here, I just reversed it. So again, it doesn't really matter. And when you are actually seeding your data, which is what we're doing here, all right, again, it's protected. We're overriding the on model creating. All right, when you start typing this in, typically the IntelliSense will kick in and it'll give you the rest of the line that's typically used. All right, So with this model builder dot entity and starting with category dot has data, that's our seed data. And you've heard this before, but I'm saying it again. That is, even though, or because it's seed data, that's why we have to put everything in, including the IDs. All right, if we were to come in and add a new category, it should automatically be put in as category 5. And we shouldn't be asked to put in a category. All right, then we had our 3 contacts, Mary Ellen Walton, Dolores Del Rio, and Efren Herrera. All right. And I want to say one more thing too before we go on. And that is when I ran my program, I was doing trying a bunch of different stuff. And like I said, some of it didn't work. And unbeknownst to me, I removed Efren Herrera from the database. All right. Could I have just put all of her information back in? The answer is yes. But once I removed contact ID 3, if I would have put Efren Herrera back in again, then Efren would have had contact ID of 4. In other words, the 3, once you remove it, it's gone. All right. I mean, is it possible for you to put it back in? I don't even know. But really, you never should do that. In fact, what happens with a lot of companies, what happens, and I know this because I've worked at some of them, is typically when you go and you remove records from a database, they don't really get removed. They get put into some kind of a log file. So if maybe it was a customer who got mad and left, and maybe they come back later, or maybe there's some other underlying circumstances. All right, but what I'm telling you is, again, so what I did was I did a remove migration, which got rid of, from my migrations folder, it got rid of this initial setup. And then I did another add migration, called it the same thing, and did another update database. And when I did that, all right, I had my original 3 records back again. All right. Okay. So let's go on. Let's talk next about the controllers. And there's a home controller and there's a contact controller. All right, let me close these because they're not needed right now. So here was my home controller. All right. Again, you've heard me say this stuff before. Anything that's up here that's in gray like this, you really don't need. So I can remove this. But the other ones are not grayed. In fact, virtually in every time that you create a controller, every time I can think of, you must have that first using statement using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.MVC. And the reason that you must have that one, the reason that you must, is because that's where the stuff for the parent controller is all been defined. All right, we are doing database operations in here, okay, as you can see, and that brought in this. All right, plus we need to be able to have access to the model. All right, and like I said, hopefully all of that stuff that I just said made sense. All right, now let's see. Now I went in and moved around a boatload of stuff. Change this, change that, and I'm looking right now, and one thing, this really should say right here, contact, oops, sorry, contact MGR. I don't know why mine doesn't say that, but it doesn't. All right, but a typical pattern when you go in and do this is what? Well, your controller should always be inheriting from controller. All right, you start out by declaring a private variable of type whatever your context is, and it's pretty common to call it context. So yeah, that is a property. All right, and again, for lack of better words, that's how you're going to be able to not even manipulate, but I'll just say utilize the database. All right. After that, the next line, starting in line 10 and ending in line 13, that's our constructor. Okay, so we pass in something, again, you can call it whatever you want, but I wouldn't give it the same name as the name up here. If you do that, so if I'd have come in and named that context like this is, all right, then I probably would have had to have said this dot context equal context. That can just be confusing. So typically people give it another name, just like you see right here. All right. And then you can see this is a very, very simplistic controller. We're not doing much here. This is what should happen. I want to say that again. This is what should happen when the program starts to run. All right. It should be bringing up our home controller's index method, which again is what this is. All right. Now, it's not a big thing, but a couple people contacted me over the weekend, had issues getting this to work or that to work. I think it's important that if you're going to be working with multiple instances of something, you pluralize it. But if you're only working with a single occurrence, you singularize it. In other words, you leave the S off. I'm not saying it won't work doing it the other way, but that's just good programming coding practices. I may have told you guys about this before. I may not have. I don't remember. But years ago, I had a student, and it's funny, I can totally recall his face, but it's probably 20 years ago. So I can't recall his name right now. I think it was Jay. And he had an interview at a company. And actually, the guy who was interviewing him was on our advisory committee. We met twice a year, and he was one of the guys who came in regularly to say, hey, this is working in your program, or hey, maybe you want to try this, etc. Long story short, okay. He said, hey, well, Jeff, why don't you come to the interview? Which I thought was kind of strange because he's interviewing him. I mean, I don't think personally, Grant, that if you were getting interviewed, you'd want Evan or I there, but that's neither here nor there. So I come and we sat and talked for a while, but then he did interview him with me there. And what Jay had asked me was, do you think I should bring some of my code? And I said, well, I wouldn't go and bring a laptop with you. You never know how their stuff is connected, etc. But yeah, you might want to bring some hard copies of your code. I said, you've always done a really good job of internal documentation where you put a lot of comments in and you explain stuff. Plus, you've got a very good logical mind. All right. And then the guy who did interview him asked him, he said, do you have copies of your code? And he brought in a couple of his more complex programs, and the guy really looked through them. And I mean, for more than 5 minutes. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Etc. He ended up getting the job. Now, he didn't get the job because of me or because of anything I did. He got the job because he was a very good programmer and he interviewed well. All I'm saying is when you are in those circumstances, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you coming in there and having, for example, your own little hard copy of your electronic portfolio, some of the stuff you've worked on, etc. Maybe you'll never be asked for it, but it's there in case you ever are. Okay, so we're telling it to use our contacts table. All right, and we're telling it to include in there, come on, every category. All right, and what the include means is this is going to bring us everything from the contacts table. But you may or may not remember the category is not in the context. It is not in the contacts table. It is in the category table. So we bring this in to basically say, oh, and add to this that category. And when you're listing things, I want you to order them in alphabetic order based on first name. Now, I think they picked first name because it's the first one that's listed. Totally fine. To me, it would have made more sense to probably order them by last name. Okay. Either way, it's not that big a thing one way or another. And I do want you to understand too what this line right here means. This means that what we're doing is we're returning to the view called index index.cshtml, we are returning this right here. And that's what we need. Because if we do go out under home and we look at index, that's everything. First name, last name, phone, email, and category. Then we have our for each where we're just listing all of it. Okay. All right. So that was the home controller. And then let's look at the contact controller. As you'd guess, this one is a little bit more complex. All right. Why? Because we have to worry in here. We've got that details. We also have an HTTP get for add, an HTTP get for edit, an HTTP post that handles both add and edit, an HTTP get for delete, and an HTTP post for delete. So let's take those one at a time. All right. Again, just like before, we're coming in here and we're adding our private variable called context. Then in our constructor, we're making that context available to the program. All right. Next, in here, we came in and you may or may not remember, this was the index method. And I replaced the word index with the word details. These are going to give us the details for a single contact. All right. And that single contact will know who she or he is based on their ID that gets passed in. So again, now you'll notice this is singular. All right. And if you look at the difference between this right here and what we had in our home controller right here, all right, this was designed to give us multiple records. This is designed to give us a single record. We're doing a first or default based on whatever we passed in, which was ID. So this ID is this ID, and we're comparing it to every contact ID that's currently in our database. And it's either going to find it, which means it'll return it, or it'll go through and it doesn't find it, in which case it'll set it to null and it'll send null to the view. All right. So that's the details. And you'll notice with the details in here, again, what are we doing? Well, we're giving the details for one individual user. It is his or her contact details. So we put this in as a big unordered list. And each thing that goes in here, each LI, as it says, is a list group item. The labels are all just regular HTML labels. The only one we manipulated here was this one. All right, where we came in and said, let's give this a little wider width because it's an email address. All right. For name, we concatenated together these two and just put a blank space between them. Then we added the phone number. Then we added the email. All right. And just so you're aware of this, and you probably already are, these were just put in as strings. So in other words, we are not double checking to make sure that the email address was formatted correctly. We are not double checking to make sure that the phone number, if you put hello in there, the program will still work. All right. And that just is more validation that could be done that we're not doing. All right. This category here, model category name. Well, again, if we go back to here, let's see if this works. I'm going to go back here to my contact. And here, if you remember, we put a question mark in there. And even though there was a question mark there, all right, when we came back to here, or was it here? Wherever it was, we still get the underscore. all right? And it's saying, again, dereference of a possibly null reference. There are ways around this. You could even come in basically and add some code to this, some razor code, where you could check basically and say that if there was nothing there at all, for the name, for the category name, you could leave it empty. It should never be an issue. All right. Sometimes when you run a program, there may be a couple of warnings that you just live with. All right. And I'm not saying this is a great example of that, but I think it is an example of it. All right. Then remember the organization, which could be null. All righty. And then we have this was programmatically added. This was that date time now. And we put in there basically the date it was added at and the time it was added. All right. And then finally, okay, we've got our edit and our delete. And you'll notice in both cases for our route slug, this name right here has to be whatever we call this, for lack of better words. And so, what is this? Well, this is really what we want to have happen. All right, this is what we want to have happen if you click edit. This is what we want to have happen if you click delete. All right, and then we've got home, which is just a hyperlink that we've styled to look like a button. All right, in fact, I think all of them are just hyperlinks that we've styled to look like buttons. All right. The add then, we've talked about this before, and I just want to make sure because like I said, I dealt with a couple of people over the weekend that they asked questions and I thought, well, we went over that in class. And I thought either it still doesn't make sense to them or they need a refresher or whatever. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So this is the get for add. Remember, both the add and the edit are sharing the same GUI. So if it's an add, we're setting the view bag action. That's going to do two things. It's going to make sure that on our H2, it says add category or add whatever, as opposed to edit it. All right. And that the button says add or the button says edit. So here is our action, our view bag action. And again, remember, basically that view bag just allows us to create the equivalent of global program variables that we can use on an as needed basis. That's what we're doing here. All right. And we're telling it here, add. Well, what are we doing? Well, we want to add. So what we're saying here is come in here and show us our list, our current list of categories. All right. And we're returning eventually a new contact. This is a get. Remember, when you do the gets, you're typically just displaying things, and it's when you're doing the post is when you're writing them. All right, saving them or whatever. And again, here we adding and we're passing nothing. Here we've got an edit. Well, you should know this already. When we do the edit, and in just a minute when we look at the delete, it has to know what to edit or what to delete. So we're passing in the ID. Our action changes accordingly. All right. And when you look, context, categories, order by, etc., that's the same thing. All right. So we're showing the same information both times. That's why, again, it's sharing the same graphical user interface. But with one of them, it'll say at the top, add category, and the other one, it'll say edit category. And again, the button up here for the one here will be add, and the button down here will be edit. Now we have to do more because what we're doing in here, and this should make sense to everyone, is we're searching to see if this particular contact that we want, or category, I should say, that we want, can we go in there and actually edit it? All right. In other words, does what we're looking for exist? Okay, and again, you'll notice that it's again singular. All right, so it's contact, both in the name of the variable and in what we're returning. Now, we may or may not have talked about this earlier. I don't remember. But when you say, like we have in line 39, var contact equal context dot contacts. For virtually everything we've ever done in C#, when we've created variables and we've done, int age equal 21. For virtually every one of those, we could have put in var instead of int. What var really and truly does is it sends a message to the system that, hey, you figure out what kind of variable this is. All right. And since it's working with databases and stuff, that's good. We don't have to worry about how to declare it. The system just figures it out. All right. Then we've got our post. And again, I said this before. I'm going to say it again. This post here that says public iAction edit is it is the post for both an add and for an edit. And in fact, on line 48, what we're saying there again, and I know you've heard this already, does the current contact that's showing on screen right here, does it have an ID? If it does not, we're adding a new record. If it does, we're editing an existing record. All right. But either way, next we want to come in and make sure that what we're trying to do right there is valid. In other words, did we set up everything the way that it should have been set up? All right. If indeed it is valid, then we need to know if it's an add, and that else in there just, we don't have to check, because if it's not an add, the only two actions we provide for in here are add and edit. I mean, we could have said else if action equal edit, but it's a little redundant. All right. So if it's an add, we have to manually go in there and add that new field, that date added, to the datetime.now, which again will be formatted to say, the short date string at the short time string. All right. Then we say context.context.add contact. I mentioned this before. This does not write it to the database. For lack of better words, it's kind of like when you're working with Git and you do a Git, all right, and before you push, how you do your Git commit, and you put everything, you moved it from the staging area and it was red before and now it's green. It's kind of the same thing we're doing here. But the system wants to know, what are you doing with its contacts? Well, here we're going to add a new record, as opposed to line 59, where we are updating an existing record. It's line 61 where this stuff is actually getting saved to the database. And after we do that, we're just returning to our home page. If this did not work, we set the action again, and basically we just send it back to where they were. All right. And then we've got our delete, our two flavors, our get to basically again show us this, and our post, which basically is going to do the deletion. So this is, for lack of better words, going to bring up in here, this is going to bring up that view that says, are you sure you want to delete contact Dolores Del Rio, for example? And if you click the yes or okay or whatever it is, then this is what runs. All right. So again, notice it's a remove. And again, after that is a save changes. And after that, we're redirecting to the home controller's index page, where we should be able to see that that record has indeed been removed. All right. So that is talking about our controllers, our migrations, our models. So let's talk a little bit more then about the views, and then we'll take a break. All right. Yeah, I don't want to do that anyway. This was the delete. As we said, this is what runs basically from the get method. And it's just a simple form that says, do you really want to delete Jeff Scott, for example? All right. And there's a button after it, and there's a hyperlink. Okay. The button is a yes, and you can see it's a submit button, and we make it dark. No biggie at all there. All right. And the link says basically, what do we want to do here? Well, the route ID is we want to basically run through the contact ID. We have the slug. And again, we're setting that's a no, which means basically it's the equivalent of saying kind of like cancel, for lack of better words. All right, so that is the delete. The details we did look at already, but we can look, whoops, we can look at them again. All right, and that's just listing everything out here in that big unordered list that we talked about before. All right, and then we have the edit. And again, as we've already talked about, this is handling both add contact and edit contact. And this is going to show whether we put in there add contact or edit contact. Now, where I had problems before, you may have left yours in. I had to comment this out. All right. When you are using an ASP validation summary, notice when you set the summary equal to all, it's supposed to look at everything. This is where I had problems. If you remember where mine said that even if I chose a category, for example, it would say something like category must be selected or something like that. So I undid this by commenting it out. Then in my form, for each field that I wanted to validate, I put it in there specifically for the form itself for each field. So I want to validate that there was a first name in there. I want to validate that there was a last name in there. I want to validate that there was a phone number in there and that there was an email in there. Those all have the spans. I left it off of the category. I left it off of the organization. All right. And then down at the bottom here, okay, you'll notice again, the button is going to be, it's going to have its text put on there programmatically. So it'll either, the button will either say add or it'll say edit. All right. And what this is right here is basically when you want to cancel. And what we were told in our requirements is if you try to cancel, all right, if you try to cancel and your, where is it? I think in here, you were supposed to go, to one place, and in here, you were just supposed to go home. All right, so I think this, if you're editing, you went right back to the page you were on. Maybe you made a mistake or whatever. But if you were here, you were adding, and if you click cancel, it just should send you back to the home page. All right, last thing to check on here then is this layout file, which again, kind of made it smaller than it was. Now it's about 20 lines. All right. And it is important, we've talked about this before, but it is important that you realize that when you come in here, this stuff they're talking about, it's all in www root. So there's our CSS, there's our client-side JavaScript, and under lib is where you're going to find the Bootstrap and the jQuery stuff. All right. So we've got all that in here. And the body itself is very simplistic. Okay, as you can see, you've got a header that's dark with white text that says Contact Manager, and then you render the body. So if I save this and I run it, Okay, you can see I'm in there. I put myself in there. And if I go and click on me and I change me, so I'm going to edit, and I'm going to change Jeff to Jeffrey, for example. All right. And I'm going to use my charter email address, which is the same thing. But I'm going to say that instead I am a friend. All right. Now watch what happens when I remove the organization and I click edit. Looks like everything worked. All right. Looks like it, but it didn't write it. I'm still at edit. I'm still here. But notice if I come back and I put in, for example, none, and I click edit, now it wrote it back. And I'm not sure why it's doing that. All right. It's doing it, but I'm not sure why it's doing that. I guess I probably didn't give it a good enough look. All right. So I can come in and I can add a new contact with no problem. But again, if I leave the organization off, you can see what happens. Even if I click add, it doesn't take it. But if I do put an organization in there and just put in none, then it adds it, and there he is. All right. And again, I'm not sure exactly what the problem is, but I can click now either on Barney or on Fife. I can click delete. Are you sure you want to delete him? Yes. All right. So that was right there. I mean, that was the contact manager. So if anybody, whether you're watching live or on tape, if I did anything on there that did not make sense to you, all right, or it's like I'm not sure what you keyed in there or whatever, let me know. I mean, we've gotten to the point where I don't mind working on some of this stuff together, but you've got to still key in the work. All right, if I put it out there as a GitHub repo, in my opinion, you'll learn very little. All right. Okay. So that was the first thing that we were going to do. So let me do a file save all on here. And so from the homework that you had, in fact, I should say the labs that you had, under projects, this was the one that we just looked at. So for next Sunday, you are to make sure you've got 4.1 done and 5.1. Debug the tip calculator, which are pretty simple. All right. I'm not going to make you do 6.1. We're going to talk about that in a day or so. All right. When I say I won't make you do it, not for this coming Sunday. All right. So for the case study, we looked at 3.1 previously. We're just going to start it as though we don't even have the project. All right. I will show you. I do have it working and I can show you that. After we get done, the idea is home should get you to the home page. Product should get you to this page. All right. Technicians get you to this page. Customers gets you to this page. And finally, incidents gets you to this page. All right. The registration will not yet work. The about just gives a very simple message that's inside of a dark colored Jumbotron. And where is it? I want to get back here. So, you can go in as it says and either add or edit a customer. You can go in and you can add or edit a product, add or edit a technician, add or edit an incident. All right. So you can go ahead and do all that stuff. And what we want to be moving towards is when this thing comes up, we want it to look like this. All right. And what does that mean? Well, you'll notice There's two different areas here. There is an admin area and there is a technician area. And you'll notice if you look at at the links that are there, admin people, as it says, are managers. Technicians are updaters, or they actually do the work. What we'll eventually get to is something that looks like this. In fact, I'm going to ask that you try it tomorrow. And with what we're working with, we'll be working with the equivalent of a bunch of different kinds of products. And I'm going to want you to put something up here that will say all. Then underneath here, it'll have the different types of products. So the idea is if we have 50 records and you choose all, then what should happen is it should show all 50. If we choose, it's not this, but let's say that it was the products that were in here. Let's say it was for I don't know, for a food place. All right, let's say that that was hamburgers. Then if you clicked on this, it would show you the different kind of burgers. All right, if this was here, if maybe it said chicken and you clicked on that, it would show you the different types of chicken, etc. All right. So what I'd like to do, it's 1:02. Let's take till 1:15. We'll take a break until then. All right. And then we're going to come in, we're taking it right from the top. And I want to do this whole thing with you for you. I've got it working. And you know as well as I do, not because I'm not a great typist or anything else, but there's a chance that when I go through this, I'll make a mistake. I would never do that on purpose. I do it without trying. So if that indeed were to happen, I will bring the actual working one up and show you that. All right. But for now, please, let's take a break. I'll leave this up here. I will see you then. All right, it's 1:15, so I'm going to get started. I think the idea behind this, or at least hopefully it makes sense to everybody. So the idea is whether we come up here and choose one of these, so products, technicians, customers, incidents, and registrations, or we go and choose one of these, we're going to get the same information and restrictions or registrations also. But the idea is, all right, the idea behind this is it is going to be a CRUD application. Now, it's CRUD, but it's not good CRUD. And what I mean by that is anybody can come in then and make additions, updates, and deletions. That's not typically what you'd want. You typically want the person to do that to be an administrator. So eventually what we'll do is where we have about here, that's going to become our admin area. And you have to be logged in as an administrator. Then everybody will have read permission. All right. But the idea is the only people that will eventually will be able to come in here and change the data will be administrators. All right. And I was thinking about this during the break. So I'm just going to say it to you now. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to go over this. I don't think we can finish this by the end of the period. Maybe we can. I don't know. All right. But what I'm going to do then, so let's suppose we get this about 2/3 or whatever finished. All right. Then what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to finish this, and where I told you I would go over the first test, I will, but I'll do that as a private video today later, and I'll just send out a copy to everyone. And then tomorrow I will give you the test, but I will give you tomorrow and Wednesday to work on it. And it will be due once class starts at the beginning of the period on Thursday. Because I think Thursday, the actual chapter that we're going to be going through, the stuff in here on routing, it's really not a long chapter. If you look, it's about 25 pages. We should be able to go through it. And I know there's an example or two in here. All right. And then after we get done with that, we'll go in and we'll start looking at the end of the chapter examples and stuff. But we'll do that on Thursday. So again, I'm going to just keep going right now, and we're going to be building this. And I'm just going to basically build 3 and 4 together, for lack of better words. All right. And what we don't finish today, we'll finish tomorrow. And as soon as we finish that tomorrow, then I'll hand out the test to everyone. In fact, I'll probably just send it out tomorrow with your regular email that you get in the morning. I was touching it up before, and there's still a few things I don't like about the way that it's worded. So I'll try to fix that tonight. All right. So let's get going. Now, again, this, not this, this is what we're working on, right? Not this one, the other one. It's a case study and it's on Sports Pro. They talk about what Sports Pro is. It's not really that big a thing. All right. But just to look at it quickly. All right. It says what we'll typically do is we'll get screen captures and you have to program out those screen captures. Unless you're instructed otherwise, you can implement each assignment using any programming techniques you wish. Okay. If your instructor doesn't provide a Sports Pro app to you, you can complete assignment 3.1 to get your website started. All right. What is assignment 3.1? That's this one. That's what we worked on last time. I'm just going to start the whole thing over again from scratch and build everything. But what we will do then is we'll go into this, and it's quite a bit of stuff. So we'll do 4.1, which is manage products, 4.2, which is manage technicians, 4.3, which is manage customers, and 4.4, which is manage incidents. We'll do all those. So I'm just going to get started right now. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a folder that's just called Sports Pro. All right. Then I'm
So,
going to
Mr.
start up.
Scott,
Yes.
are we starting this over from scratch? I
You
think
you
I
know
have.
it's up to you. All
Okay.
right. All right. Again, I had people who contacted me afterwards who were confused as to what we were doing. And that's
Okay.
why I'm doing it this way.
All right.
Okay. All right. But yeah, if you're happy with it, yours was working, I wouldn't. Oh. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start up a new session of Visual Studio. Create a new project. You know the drill by now. It will be an ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller. Everything is going to be called Sports Pro. So Sports Pro is the name of the project. Sports Pro is the name of the folder. And Sports Pro is the name of the solution. All right. Next, 7.0, none. We're still not doing anything with HTTPS yet, so I'm going to leave it off. We may have to put that in there later. I don't know. I'm just going to leave it off for now. We'll see. All right, and create. We should all be to the point here now where nothing that's right here is a surprise, including if I ran this, what it would look like, and what you get in your starting folders. All right, to try to make this run a little bit better, I'm going to do it in this way. I'm going to go into Tools, and I'm going to go into my NuGet Package Manager, manage NuGet Packages for Solution. Notice there's nothing installed, so I'm going to go over to Browse. And again, I'm going to put in Microsoft.EntityFrameworkCore.Tools. There it is. So I'm going to click here and tell it to install it. And then do the same thing one more time in here, but instead of tools, I want SQL Server. All right. Which you have to spell correctly. And there it is. Again, it's already checked. Install, accept. So I know now that I've got my two packages in here. You've seen me do this before, but I'm going to close it, open it up one more time and go over to installed just to be sure those two are in there. And there they are. Okay, again, nothing new there. Okay, so that's the start. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to start working in my models right away. Well, if you remember when we looked here, I'm just going to do them in this order. So I'm going to do products, then I'm going to do technicians, then I'm going to do customers, then I'm going to do incidents. We don't work on registrations now. I don't believe we do that one yet. I think it's just these four that we're going to be concerned with. And I could be wrong on that, but I don't think that I am. All right. All right. And after we get done with each one of these, we'll bring in that context file that I sent you before. All right. Okay. So I'm going to come in, like I said, into models, and I'm going to add a new class. and it's going to be product.cs. I got to learn to product.cs. And there we go. You've seen me do this before. It's no biggie, but I'm going to add my own using in here. System.components or component model dot data annotations. All right. And there may be other stuff that gets added as well. I don't care about that right now. So public int product ID. Oops, sorry. And we will have in here our get and set. All right, then we've got a required in here, which is our product code. I'm going to keep these real simple. All right, so I'm just going to call this code. In fact, let's call it product code. Code can be a little confusing, so. All right, and that is required. Then we're going to have another required field in here. That's going to be the name. And I think I've said this to you already, so sorry, but we could call this product ID, product code, product name, etc. Next will be yearly price, and then we'll have a release date. You could preface all of them with product. It's totally fine. Come up with a way that you're comfortable doing it and do it that way. That's the best thing I can tell you. All right, next we're going to have the yearly price. It's not required, but there is a range in there. And we're going to do something else in here as well. All right, and let me put this in and then we'll talk about what it means. In fact, there's just one more field. So let's put the last field in here, which is the release date. Then we'll go back and talk about everything. There's nothing with this one, so it's just a date time. And this one, we didn't do this before, but you know what actually would have made sense when we wrote this last time? We can just set this to date time dot now. We can do that. I need the equal sign. Okay, so I don't think there's any surprise here or here or here. All right, this new thing that's in here, this column, we're letting the system know that what we're working with is a decimal field. If you remember when we did our first set, our first problem, so to speak, on day one, we ended up casting everything we were putting in to being of type decimal, just to be safe. Well, this is saying, hey, this is going into the database as a decimal, plus the biggest value that we assume is going to be put in here is $999,999.99. That should be plenty big, I would think. We could have made it bigger if we wanted to or needed to. 8 total decimal places, 2 after the decimal place. All right. And then again, we've got this release date, which, as I mentioned, we are just going to default to datetime.now. All right. I'm just going to keep going. You have any questions, please stop me. All right. So there's our first one. Let's continue on and let's go to technician. All right, here's that one. Again, I'm going to just grab this from over here. I'll grab both of these. I don't know if I need them both or not, but I'm going to anyway. I think I'll only need the first one, but still, that's fine. All right, so we've got that. And this is pretty simple. Doggone it. All right, public int technician ID with a get set. And then we've got 3 required fields. All right. And I'm going to just call it phone instead of phone number. And we don't have to do this, but since those are all strings, let's just set all these like this. All right. I think it'll work fine if we don't, but just in case. All right. So that's our second one. So far we've gone in and we did the product and we did the technician. So each technician has his or her own ID, name, email address, and phone number. All right, so let me do another file, save all, and let me go on to the next one. All right, and the next one will be customer. And I'm just doing them in order. And to be honest with you, I think at least the first one we did was probably amongst the most complex out of the ones that we did. Now, doggone it. Hold on just a sec. Okay, so let's do our customer next. All right, and again, we'll come in and grab those 2 fields. Those 2 using statements and put them right at the front here. Okay. So we got quite a few fields in here, to be honest with you. So okay. Sometimes, having this IntelliSense is a nice thing. What happened there? I don't know, but something did. Okay. Now we're going to have something called a country ID. Okay, and we're going to grab that from another table we have not created yet. So we're going to get an error probably on this. We'll fix that momentarily. All right, so again, don't let that worry you. And we're going to have a way that we're going to be able to come in here and just concatenate together our first name and last name. I don't know. I didn't do that. System did, unfortunately, but let me get rid of that. I don't want this. Okay. And that's it. So let me take this back from the top here. So again, every customer that's in here has an ID, which would make sense. And then almost every other field that's in here is a string. So we are setting them equal to string.empty. So each customer has a required first name, a required last name, a required address, a required city, a required state, all right, a required country ID, okay? And really, that's the way we'll want to store in there is the country ID. But when we go in to add a new customer, we don't want the ID to show because who knows if the United States is, let's say, number 18 or number 23. All right, so we will actually want the country itself. So we'll do that in just a bit. All right. Plus, we've got a phone number, which we're not making mandatory, and email, which we're not making mandatory. And then finally, a full name, which is going to allow us basically to just concatenate together the first name and last name. All right. So hopefully, at least, hopefully, all of that made sense. And let's do country next. It's not very big, so it shouldn't really take very long. So let me save this and go over and under models. Let's add another class. And it will be country.cs. All right, I will again, in fact, I don't even know. Well, let's just do this one this way. So we will have, this will be required, even though it's the ID, we're going to make it required. And the reason that we're doing it like that is because it is going to be a string. All right, so I'm going to put in here country ID with a get set. And we're also going to have required in here, and that'll be the name. Now we can make it, oops, we can make it country name. I just called my name. Like that. Now, what should happen in here? What should happen? Well, this has got ID in it, and I don't like putting question marks and stuff in there with anything that's an ID. But what should have happened now when I come in here and do my file save all, if I jump back again to my customer, that error that we had should be gone, and you'll see that it is. All right. Now we got those questions, those in there. We can worry about those later. Okay, I'm not going to worry about them right now. All right, so what's left? All right, well, again, going back to here, we have done products, we have done technicians, I think we've done customers. So incidents looks like it would be the only thing that would be left in there. Or I should say incident, and then we will put in our context file. All right, so let's come back in here. And we will make incident.cs. All right. This one is a little bit more quirky because we're going to be using this, for lack of better words, we want to tie together in here. Customers have incidents, products are what's involved in incidents, and technicians are the one who are going to work on incidents. So we got quite a bit of stuff that we're going to put in here. Let's just start to try to make it a little simpler. Again, grab these. All right, and then let's start putting our stuff in here. Now, again, for lack of better words, the way this table is, like I said, for lack of better words, and this probably isn't put that well, but what we're doing in here is we are tying together all of the other tables, for lack of better words. Okay, so let's start putting it in. This will be incident ID. So this will be the primary key for this table. But we're going to have a bunch of required foreign keys and navigation properties where we're going to put in 3 of the other tables. So we'll have here required. And this will be public int customer ID. Again, that's a foreign key. And then we're going to have public customer with a get set. Again, that's that navigation property. So we're going to be able to bring customer information in, all right, when we're working on the incident form, so to speak. Then we want to do the same thing with product. Oops. All right, and then with technician, this one can be null because it's possible that we have an incident that just happened and that incident does not yet have a technician who's been assigned to it. So that one we will allow to be nullable is what I'm saying. All right. And then we've got 4 other fields, and these are just things that we need for the incident. We need a title for it, and that's going to be required. We'll have another required field in here for the description. All right. We'll have a non-required field that's called date opened. So again, that's when the incident was first opened. And we will again set that to datetime.now. And we will also have and this one could be literally could be null for a long time, and that'll be date closed. We'll just set that one equal to null. So taking this thing again from the top, because I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. All right. So we've got an incident ID, which is our primary key, a required customer ID, which is our first foreign key, the customer table, which we call a navigation property, which means, again, we're going to be able to bring in fields from the customer table into what we're working on with incidents. Then we did the same thing with product, meaning the product ID is put in as a as a foreign key, and product itself is brought in as a navigation property. Then we do the same thing again with a technician. All right. And as I mentioned with technician, it is plausible that something just happened and we do not yet have a technician assigned to an incident. So that one can be null. All right. After that, we had our 4 fields. These are basically all things for an incident. An incident must have a title, must have a description. And again, you'll notice in here, so what we can do, we don't have to. I'm always on the fence here over whether I should do this or not. Of course, I didn't put the equal sign, which is why it's giving me an error. All right, I can do it here as well. What I'm doing every time I do that is I'm cutting down another one of these warnings that I'm getting in here. All right, maybe we'll go back and look at those later. I don't know. So we now have our models. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different data models, which will eventually equate to 5 different tables. All right, one called countries, one called customers, one called incidents, one called products, and one called technicians. All right, and I'm hoping we're at the point right now again where everything that I just said in there made sense. All right, so let's put in our context file now. This, as you'd guess, is not a short file, but the good news is the guts that are in here, I've already given you. All right, I sent that to you this morning. All right, so again, let me do a file, save all. And let me come into models, add another class. That class, I'm just going to call it Sports Pro Context. All right. .cs. Okay. Now, a few things about this. You know most of this stuff already. Again, I should be able to come in here and do my using Microsoft dot, and notice Entity Framework Core is available. All right. And it is available because we'd already gone in and done our NuGet stuff. All right. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then you'll notice as soon as I come over here and I hit the space bar, automatically it knows, oh, it's a context class. You're going to be inheriting from DB context. All right, nothing surprising there is what I'm saying. All right. Now I want to see exactly where I stopped right here. This is the stuff I sent you earlier today. So let me bring that file up. There it is. All right. So we've got this. I'm just going to grab everything within the curly braces, starting with line 3 here, and I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. So I've got everything in this file that I gave you. I'm putting in everything between lines 3, all right, line 3 and line 297, which is at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to jump back into here, and I'm going to try to paste it in. Hopefully I don't get errors. All right. And it gave me a bunch of errors. Okay, that's okay. Let's see if we can figure out what they are. I may have named things differently. It could be all sorts of stuff. All right. I don't think I called this postal code. In fact, did I put in a postal code? And country ID, there's a few things here it doesn't like. So it says customer does not contain a definition for postal code, and customer does not contain a definition for ID. All right, that's probably on me. but let's go back in and we'll reopen up customer. All right. And we'll see if I left that out. If I did, I apologize in advance. No biggie. We'll get it to work in just a moment. All right. So customer right here. All right. We had, taking it from the top, we had customer ID, first name, last name, address, city, state. I did leave out postal code. So please, right after state, please put in postal code. My error, and it'll be required. You'll notice that the IntelliSense, for lack of better words, is pretty much already picking it up. All right. I didn't enter any of that. I just hit tab a bunch of times. So we've got a required one in here, string postal code. That's on me again. I apologize for that. Now, what that should do is if you look in here, now all the errors I have, they all talk about something else. All the errors that we had in here for postal code are now gone. All right, so let's jump back for a second into our context file, and it's got country ID. Thought I put that in. Let's double check. All right, so again, inside of customer here, well, public string, country ID. See it right there. I said required, and it's got to get set. Okay. So it's saying here, customer does not contain country ID. Did I spell it differently? Country ID right there. I put county ID. Okay. Put an R in there. Not right there. How about right there? All right. And I'm just going to do a file save all. And you'll notice all of those errors are now gone. So it's coming up and it's telling me it doesn't like something for technician ID. All right. For our technicians. Did I spell technician wrong? Technician ID. That looks right to me. Technician ID. Oh, make that a capital D. Let me do another file, save all. And now, yeah, I still got some nullable warnings, but everything has been fixed. I apologize for that. All right, so let's go back into our context and take a look at this. As you know, when you work with this context file, all right, as you know, first thing is we have to come in and you've already seen that we need the using statement at the top, which we've got available to us as long as you've gone in through NuGet and added those two packages. We've got to, on line 5, we have to inherit from DB context. In lines 7, 8, and 9, we have to go in and we have to write our constructor. And again, that constructor, for lack of better words, that constructor is saying, hey, any options that may be passed in are going to end up being used. All right. And they're going to end up being used or being handled, I should say, by the parent. That's the base. All right. Then in here, we have our DB sets. And as you can see, these are going to be our 5 tables. I don't think there's anything more we have to say about these. Again, with country, it's smart enough to realize that the Y turns into an IE. All right. Then the rest of these are just our on model creating. All right. So we have our products that we're entering. Looks like there's 7 of them. Then we have our technicians we're entering. There's 5 of them. Then we have our countries. I don't know how many of these there are. And as we talked about before, the country ID is a string. It's not a number. All right. Then we have our customers, and it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 customers. All right, then we have our incidents. I think there's only one. Oh, maybe there's a few of them. Okay, more than one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 incidents, and that's it. And again, hopefully not going through, not taking the time and going through that, all the stuff that's in here, and manually keying it in, that saved us some time at least. All right, so I'm going to do one more file, save all. All right, and I'm going to just close virtually everything I've got open here. All right, so next I'm going to do what we always do, and that is I'm going to go into appsettings.json. All right, and just like I showed you before, in fact, I'm going to go into my contact manager from the last chapter. And in my contact manager, I am going to find my appsettings.json and open that. And I'm going to grab this connection string stuff. I have to, of course, use a different name. Copy that to the clipboard. Come back in here and paste it in. Now I want to look because I don't know if I already have a Sports Pro database in here. I might, because I was screwing around with it before. I don't remember if I removed it or not, so. All right, I've got a Sports Pro and a Sports Pro 2. I don't know if I can just remove this one or not, so I'm going to try to delete it. We'll see if I can. All right, looks like it removed it. That's good. All right, so I just added my connection strings, as you can see. Again, yours may have to change from what I've got in here for after the server equal. All right, I do want to come in and change this. I don't want to call this contact manager. This will be Sports Pro. Again, my trusted connection will be true. And again, my multiple active result sets will be true. All right, so file save all on there. And I'm going to close that one. And I'm going to go over and open up my program file. All right, and again, I know I do get it. We've done this before. I get all this. All right. All righty. Okay. Now, we're not doing anything in here with a slug, so we don't have to change this, but we do have to come up here and after that, add controller with views. Again, just like I did before, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to open up my program.cs file from here. I'm going to grab this whole thing like we did before. I'll have to change the name from contact context to Sports Pro context, but it's still, to me, that's a lot easier than doing it the other way. So I'm going to paste this in. And again, change that to Sports Pro context. It's still going to give me an error. We'll fix that error in a moment. There's a using statement we need. And this will also be Sports Pro context. Again, I'm getting an error here. If I put my mouse over there, there's a using statement. I hate the way this IntelliSense comes in here like this, but here we go. It needs using sportspro.models. So it needs that line right there. Okay, so as far as I know, when I come in here and save this, I'm pretty good to go. So in other words, what I'm saying is I'm going to come in here, unless I miss something, we'll find out in a moment. I'm going to go to Tools, NuGet Package Manager, and I'm going to jump right into the NuGet Package Manager console. And I do not right now, as you can see, I do not have a migrations folder. So I'm going to add a migration. And again, I will call this initial setup. Hopefully I didn't screw anything up. That's good. It's giving me the migrations folder. And if I look up here, it should have, again in here, it's got my up one in here, which is going to do all the creating. And down at the bottom here, it's got my down if I want to remove the migration, wherever that is. It's in here someplace. There it is. All right, but I want to update. So update database. All right, the connection string has not been initialized. All right, so something is screwed up with my connection string. Hey, I told you, chances of everything working and being golden from the start, typically not good. So let's open here. I don't want to do that there. That should be an app settings.json. Contact server equals. And that's bad because that looks to me like it's correct. Oh, I didn't change this. That's got to say Sports Pro context. I'm sorry. All right, so I changed it to Sports Pro context. Now, probably I could just run the update database again. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to remove my last migration. All right. So when you look in here, you'll notice now my whole migrations folder is gone again. So I'm going to put it back with an add migration initial setup. And the migrations folder is back again. And now I'm going to try my update database. All right, says that's done. Let's take a quick look. So I'm going to refresh, come back to here, open that, and look for Sports Pro. There it is. And it says under tables, it has my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables. And if I look at, let's just quickly grab them. So there's the data in here. So there's our technicians. There are our products. There are our incidents. There are our customers. And this is the big one, love for last. Those are our countries. So as far as I can tell, everything so far is cool. All right. So we've come in so far. We created really 6 different models, but 5 in that we created a model. We created a products model. We created a technicians model. We created a customers model. We created a countries model, and we created an incidents model. Then it basically was you just taking the information that I provided for everybody, but we went in and we grabbed the context file. Like I said, rather than you having to take all that time typing that, which I thought would be kind of ridiculous. It might have been a nice exercise. I don't know. All right. So to me then, what would make the most sense is for us to start coming in here and putting in our controllers. All right. And as I'm sure you would probably guess, all right, we will have what? We will have in here a home controller, a product controller, a technician's controller, a customer controller, and an incident controller. We will not have a country controller. The only reason that we added that country thing is for that, though, because being good database people, we may want to use country in more than one table. So we wanted to put it in an area so we could just grab it from that one table. All right. So again, we're going to make 5 different controllers here. All right. All right. I think what we'll do is we'll just do we'll do the home one because it's very short, and we'll take another break. All right. So let's come in here and let's just jump right into our home controller, which we have anyway. That's the only controller we have in here. So let's jump into that one. All righty. And taking it from the top then, you've seen this before. I'm going to start by getting rid of all this logger stuff. Okay, so that's gone. And I'm going to get rid of all the privacy stuff. And there's some more logger and privacy stuff at the very bottom as well. All right, so we've really thinned out our home controller right now. Okay, we've got this, and that's really all we want, except we also want, we're going to have an about in here as well. And just like before, it's just going to return a view. All right. And really, the idea is this index is going to return, just show you real quick. When we run the program, the home index is going to run, and it's going to show us this. That's ideally what we want to have come up when the program starts. If we click the about link that's right here, I don't think they show that one. It's just going to bring up, and they have you put it into a jumbotron, just like a sentence or so about the company. I'm looking in here, but I don't think they provide that one as far as what it'll look like. Well, I mean, we'll make it. You can, if you don't like it, I just grabbed what the author said, but if you don't like it, you could put literally anything in there you wanted to put in. All right. Okay, so we've got the first controller done. Let's go in. I think we can probably do this and then take a break, okay? I will tell you, I don't normally talk about my personal life, but I just want you to hear this. All right. My daughter, who lives in St. Louis, called me last night and was kind of frantic and said, Dad, a mouse just ran over my foot. She lives in an apartment. So mice freak her out. So long story short, she came over here last night. She works out past Chesterfield. So she went to work and now I think she's on her way home. So if you hear anything, it'll be her coming in the house. Plus I'm watching her dog for her. So if she comes into the house, her dog will probably go nuts. So if that happens, I'm just going to go right into a break and move into the other room where I can shut the door, just so you know that. I know more info, it's the old TMI, way too much information, but I just wanted you to know, for lack of better words, what was going on. All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make my products controller. And I shouldn't have said products, it's singular. Remember, when you're doing controllers, product controller .cs, and there that is. Okay. And hopefully by now, this is just making some sense to you in that, unlike the home controller in here, we want to be doing a bunch of stuff that's going to be affecting the database or conceivably affecting the database. So we're going to start with in here a private Sports Pro context that, again, as always, we'll just call this context. And that'll be our with our get set. All right, and next we will put in our constructor. All right, and in here we will have again our Sports Pro context that we'll just call CTX, and context equals CTX. Nothing really new in there. Like I said, that's stuff that we've been doing for a while. How's that? All right. Now, what we want to have happen, I want to say this to you, but let me show it to you first. What we want to have happen whenever we come in, when we click this right here that says manage products, or when we click here on products, what we want to show is a listing of all our products. This is right here. This is what we'll want to show. All right. So to do that, we're literally going to come in here and we're going to make a list of our products. And we could put these in order, any kind of order we wanted, by code, by name, by price. We'll use release date. So we'll have our oldest products will show first, our newest products will show last. All right. So I don't even know if I'm going to use an index in here. I don't know if I am or not, but I'm going to just take this one that says index right now, and I'm going to change this to list, because this is going to be my list of products. All right. And again, if you don't like my names, you could come up with another one if you wanted to. All right. Now, I want a list of products. Let me make these a little smaller here. All right. So I want to show right here a list of products. All right. So I'm going to say that this is equal to context dot products. Again, because I like to put these on multiple lines, dot order by. Okay. And then I want to, when I return to the view, I want to pass into that view this list of products. So again, this is another one of our link queries that we're writing right here, that we're telling it basically to go through the products table and give us a list of everything that's in there, ordering it in ascending order, all right, by release date. And I think you all know this already. Whatever you call this, this is a made-up variable right here, this P. I just used P for products. If it was incidents, I would have called it I. All right, etc. Again, hopefully you all get the idea there. All right. So let's continue on here. Like I said, as soon as my daughter comes in the door, our break is going to start. Well, this is going to handle us adding a new product right here. All right, and this is our get, not our post, our get. All right, so it's pretty easy. Let's start out with a view bag action. And we'll set that equal to add. And we will return view, add edit, and a new product. And it may not look exactly like it, but we're virtually writing this the same way we wrote the last one. All right. I don't think we called the last one add edit. We could have. I don't know. But again, we are sharing the same interface here, and we are sharing it with our public iAction result of edit. And remember, for edit, we do need an int with the ID in it. All right, here we will set the view bag action to edit. All right, now we have to go through basically and find that product so we can bring it up. So var product equal context dot product dot, not a first or default. It's just going to be a find. We want to find it by the ID. And then we want to return view. And again, add edit. This time with the product. Hopefully we're getting to the point where when you look at these two methods, because we're going to next write the post for this. All right. Some people like to go in and they like to write all their gets first, etc. I don't want to do that. Okay. But when you look at this, these are our gets. And remember, for the add, the idea is it's going to be showing us the equivalent of a blank form. So in other words, and I know you probably have seen this already, but there's our add. There's our edit. You'll notice that right now we're not even monkeying around with buttons. We're just having a save and a cancel. But this does say add product, and this does say edit product. The words add and edit, for lack of better words, the words add and edit are being grabbed, we'll just say, all right, from that viewbag.action that we just put in. All right. All right, let's do our post. We could call this edit, and that's totally fine. But what we're really trying to do here is we're attempting to save save a new record or save an updated record. So I'm going to call it what it is. That is save. All right. Now, very similar to the stuff we did before. Might be a little bit different, but it's very similar. All right. So as always, the first thing we're checking is, was everything put in there the way it was supposed to? And you'll notice our IntelliSense put in the next line for me with me just hitting the tab key. All right. So this is if the model state is valid. In fact, let's not do it like that. I'm sorry. This is the right code, but I need to make another check first. So if product ID equal 0, then we want to do this. It's an add. And again, I don't know. I've told Evan before that in my opinion, I don't know which class is harder to teach, this one or the grant that you took last semester. All right. Just because in here, there's always things you've got to remember to do. And it's so easy to screw it up, especially when you're working with databases. All right. Well, on an else here, well, we check to see if it was 0. If it's not 0, what does that mean? That means that rather than it being an add, it's going to be an update. All right. So again, I can add a bunch of comments in here. It doesn't really matter if I do or not, but it's important that you realize what's happening in these lines that you see right here. We're validating the model state, which means we put in stuff that isn't going to break our database. Then if we don't have any product ID, we know it's got to be a new record. So we're getting it ready to save by doing an add. If there is a product ID, we know it's an existing record, so we're doing an update. All right. So regardless, what we want to do next then is we want to do our context dot save changes. And then we will also afterwards, we will do a return redirect to action. And let's go to our list, because this is our list of products. And we either just added a new one, or we updated an existing one. All right. We need an else in here. And again, what does that mean? If we hit this else that's right here, that means that the model state didn't make it. Something was wrong. I don't know yet what was wrong, but something was. So again, if it's a new record, we just want to let the system know by saying it's an add. Else, same kind of thing. All right. But we're going to set, oh, why that's doing that. Let me move this out of the way. Move that up. There we go. It's an edit. And again, in here, regardless, because we need a return. Whoops, I didn't put my semicolon there. All right. But regardless, then we want to return product. All right. So something screwed up. I don't know what, but something was screwed up. It's looking here. I don't know. I may have lost a curly brace when I was going through this before. Oops. Okay. All right. So that is my save. So we've got 2 deletes to go, an HTTP get for delete and an HTTP post for delete. Well, it's already starting to help me here. Well, there's the first one. Move that up. And then let's do our post. Okay, that's it. So I'll let you take a quick look at that and put that in. It is 2:22. All right. And let's pick it up again at 2:35. Once we do that, we're going to write the technician controller, then the customer controller, then the incident controller. All right. Then I think what we'll do after that is we will go in just to our layout file and look at that, just the layout file. All right. And that would mean that tomorrow then we would write all of our views, because I want to finish up sometime a little after 3. This just gets to be too much. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. All right. But this is pretty heavy stuff. So I'll see you in 12 minutes at 2:35. Yes, yeah. All right, it's 2:35, so I'm going to start up. So far, again, we have created all of our models and our context. We have put in a home controller and a product controller. So we need to add here 3 more controllers and then our layout file. And then tomorrow we'll worry about the view files. So I'm going to come in here into controllers again. I'm going to add a controller and it will be technician controller .cs. It's going to be very similar really to the other one. We're doing this to the customer one. We're doing a lot of very similar types of things. So all right, so that is identical to what we did before, except the name of the constructor, of course, is different because it's a different controller. All right. And just like we did before, we're going to do a list. Now, really what I could have done in here, to be honest with you, we could have just copied the other one in and just changed almost every instance of product to technician. I find that when I do that, I tend to screw it up a lot. So I'm not going to. So I'm just going to do it like this. And then we return view X. All right, so there is our list method. And again, it is virtually the same method that we wrote before. All right, but for our customers. So now I'm going to come in, I'm going to write the add and the edit, both being HTTP gets, and then do a post, which we'll again call save. So it'll be really, really similar. All right. There's the add. I'll give you a second to catch back up and then we'll do the post for this. Again, virtually the same thing that we just did with products. All right. Except we're working with technicians now as opposed to products. So again, we'll do the save now, and then we'll do a delete with a get and a delete with a post, and that'll be it for this one. So. All right, so that's handling the case of everything working. And again, if it doesn't work, we're going to set the view bag action to either add if the technician ID was 0 or edit if it wasn't, and then just return this whole thing back to whatever called it. So all right. So that's everything for the post. And then we have to write our get and our post for our delete actions. And you can see the IntelliSense is already trying to help me out here. Oops. Yeah, that's right. All right, and that's it for this one. So again, I'll give you a second to, if necessary, catch back up. Then we'll write the customer one, which again will look virtually the same. And then we will write the incident one. That one will look different. Remember, incident is kind of, for lack of better words, it's kind of a wild card, you might say. All right, because that's the one that's combining information from 3 other tables. All right, so let me do a file save all here. I'm not hearing anything, Brant, so I'm taking for granted you've been able to keep up.
Yes, I'm good to go.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, so let's do the customer controller. Now, normally I wouldn't do this because I think it's really, pardon my French, but piss poor practice, but I'm gonna anyway. That is, I'm gonna grab everything that we had. I just went over the technician one, and I'm grabbing everything that's in it, in between the top and bottom curly braces, copying it to the clipboard, and I'm gonna paste it into my customer controller. I'm gonna get rid of this and paste this in. Now, there might be errors, I don't care, but I'm going to just take it from the top now because it means a lot less typing for me. All right, so in here, of course, that'll have to be customer controller. All right, but my private sports pro context is fine with the get set. Here's our constructor. All right. Next, again, we're going to have a list. Now, this won't be a list of technician now. All right, it'll be a list of customer. That's why I said, I don't know if it's better to do it this way or worse, to be honest with you. So, and we're going to do it by last name. All right, there's our list. So like I said, come up with your own, whether that's a better way of doing it or a worse way of doing it. I don't know. All right, so there's the list, and then we'll do our add next. That's all it has to change there. Oh, I'm wrong. Okay, yeah, we can do this, but what we have to also do is we have to figure out the country. This is the only time that we have been asked to put in a country or a country, not a country code, but a country which will basically be saved by the country code. All right, so I'll move that up. There we go. And now we'll do this one. I'm going to grab this, bring it in here. All right. Okay, what did I screw up on? We'll find it right now. Oh, forgot a line, that's why. Okay, sorry about this. I think I interpolated two lines together, so. There we go. Let me just double check all these. I'm not going to do that for the next one. I am going to type them in. It's too easy for me to screw up. Good. Got a semicolon. All right. Then it's time for the post. I don't know why, but I switched this one up. I went kind of back to the way we did it before, and that, as I said here, if customer dot customer ID is equal to 0, see, that's why it's giving me the error. There we go. And this has to be customer. There we are. All right, if that's equal to 0, viewbag dot action equals add, else viewbag dot action equals edit. Okay, now we'll check out our model state. All right, if model state dot is valid, now we can just come in and say if viewbag dot action equal add. So we could have done it the way we did it before. It doesn't really matter. There's so many different ways of checking this one. So here we want to add customer. And that's of course got to be customers. Otherwise, it's an update customers. Customer. Save changes, redirect back to list. All right, nothing new in there. So I'll leave that up for just a second. Else, well, here we know the model state wasn't valid. So get rid of all this stuff that's in there. Start over again. So all right, give you a second to do that. We'll finish up with the get and post for the delete, which will be similar to what they are now. Except I'll have to change my tech to whatever.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
All righty. All right, so we are working here then with customers. Now I'm looking at this. I'm wondering if I may have made a mistake in here in my own code. I think that this should say this. All right. And then this. I think that's everything. I got one too many curly braces there. Here. For some reason, when I typed it in up here, I had product here, which doesn't make any sense because I want to delete a customer right there and not a product. So I think that was just one of my many screw ups, but I'm not positive, to be honest with you. All right, now is the beast, so to speak, because it's the big one. So I'm taking for granted you're all caught up. So we're going to make one more controller here, and that will be our incident controller. Let me close all these. Okay, same stuff we've been doing all along here, nothing really new there. This is where it'll start changing though. Our list, etc., is going to be different. Now, if we do go in and we take a look, hopefully at least, the product stuff pretty much makes sense to you. The technician stuff pretty much makes sense to you. All right. The customers pretty much make sense to you. This one again is different because you'll notice when we're managing incidents, all right, the title is something that belongs to the incidents um, table. Customer is grabbed from the customers table. Product is grabbed from the product table. Date opened is from the incident table as well. So again, you can see that we are literally grabbing things from 3 different tables. All right. Why am I telling you that? Because when we go through here, and we're going to make this one our list again. So that's everything there. And again, it is important that everybody watching this, whether you're watching live or on tape, realizes that what we're telling it to do here is we're telling it to go to the customer table and be able to bring in stuff from there. We're telling it to go to the product table and be willing to bring in stuff from there. It's going to take the stuff we're bringing and we're going to order it by the date the incident was open, and then we want to list this. All right. That's why I said, sometimes it's boom like that. It just makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. All right. Now, what we want to be able to do is to store these lists that we showed before. All right. If you remember, we've got a list of customers. We've got a list of products. We got a list of technicians. But we want some central place, for lack of better words, to kind of be able to hold all of that information. So we're going to do something a little different than what we've done before. This is again one place where that view bag kind of shines because we can use it in here. All right. So there's where we're going to be listing our customers, and we're going to do similar things for products and technicians. All right. That's that whole the whole method right there. And it's doing exactly what the title says. It's giving us a view bag to hold all of our customer information, and it'll also hold all of our product information, and it'll also hold all of our technician information. which hopefully will make it easier when we go to grab that information out in just a bit. Now we want to go in and do our add and our edit, etc., as we have been doing. Again, that's to me where this shines, because this says go in there and hey, just grab everything from all three of those tables. And that's what we're doing right there. Now we'll be able to pass all that information in at one time into the view. All right, which is really going to make it nice when we want to populate the form, either an empty form, or if we want to populate one when it's an edit, when we're editing an existing an existing incident. All right. All right, so let me get rid of a couple of the blank lines so you can see all of it. So there's both of our gets. Then there's the post, and then our get for delete and our post for delete. Then we'll go take a quick look at the layout file, and that'll be it for today. Let me ask you, and I pick on you because you're the only one here. Is what we're doing basically making sense?
Yeah, for the most part,
Yeah. I mean, like I said,
I
it's
think so.
different than what you did last semester. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's there's going to be times in here when we go through things and you may be, oh, that's kind of like when we did this, but not that many times. In a way, the people who are in this class, and there's two people in this class, Becca and Lou, in a way they've got it a little nicer than the other ones, the other four of you, in that they just left the C# class. And we did go a little further into databases in there than I did with you guys. All right. So I don't know.
yeah. I definitely feel like it was easier going from back-to-back kind of JavaScript classes like I did in the spring and summer.
Yeah.
I haven't done C# since December
Yeah.
before, just a
Right.
couple weeks ago. So
All right. Let's do the post. Again, I'm looking at my stuff here. And I know I'll go right back to where I was, but okay, it's okay. See, when we're editing in here, I don't, we're editing it. We have to be editing an incident. So I would think this shouldn't be that. It should be incident, which would mean so should this. Now, is it possible I'm wrong? Yes. But to me, that makes more sense that that be incident and so would that. And the reason I'm saying that is in my delete down here, I don't think that's product either. I think that's incident. We don't want to delete a product. We want to delete an incident. That should be everything. Are you all caught up?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, good. Then let's for the last thing today, let's look at the layout file in here. So under our views, shared underscore layout.cshtml. I think we can, I don't know how much we're going to change in here. Let's look. Now, we haven't talked about this at all. It is in your book, but view data is like view bag. But there's things you can do with view data that you can't do with view bag. And there's things you can do with view bag you can't do with view data. I'm going to just hold off on those and we will talk about them when they bring it up in the book. I don't know if that's in chapter 6 or not, but we will talk about it. Right. Site here, I got styles here. I don't know why, but I brought in a bunch of scripts in here. I said that's my problem with doing this stuff like about 6 months ago and then trying to remember everything that I did. So okay. There we go. I know that's a little hard to see.
I've got all that now.
All righty. I'm probably going to regret doing this, but regardless, I'm going to get rid of everything in the header here and rewrite my own. It's a few lines, probably about 20 lines, but That is building the nav bar at the top. All right, now we want to build the one that's going to go along the side. Hopefully, what I just said made sense. So the first one we just finished was this one. That's going to be this one here. All right. And what we're going to make now is this one here. All right. All right. So all right, I'm going to put this on multiple lines so you can read it. Okay, and we need 6 of these. So I'm going to copy this down that many times. All right, and then take it from the top here. Oops, sorry. All right, we literally have about 3 or 4 more lines to type, but I want to make sure you get a chance to key in all that stuff first. If you need me to move it up or down or whatever, please let me know.
I think I'm good.
Okay, sounds good. All right. After this div, we've got another div that's 3 lines long. That should be it. And unless I've mistyped something, nope, we're still not done. But that's it for this section. So we have very little to go. Let me know when you got this done as well, please.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay. All right. Class equal container, main role. Change that from 3 to 5. Render the body. Main div, that's good. The footer, these we already brought up above, so I can get rid of all that. And in the footer, let's see. Class equal container, ampersand copy. And we're gonna get rid of all this stuff because we're not working with privacy anymore. All that. And what we'll put in here is 2023 is fine, dash is fine. Ampersand date time dot now dot year. Oh, brother Jeff. Date time dot now dot year dash sports pro, like that. And again, feel free to customize that any way you want to put your name in there. Hey, go for it. Not a problem. All right, you have all that?
Yes, I've got it.
All right. Okay, I think I know what this is, but I'm not worried about it. That's all up there, so that's good. The about I don't see, which is not good. But at least we got our home, our product, this stuff is in there. All right. I want to very quickly go back and look at the last thing where we put in the about to make sure I didn't screw anything up. So. That might be it. There shouldn't be a dash before the word active. That could be what it was. All right. Let's see if that fixed that. There's our about, which isn't pushed over right now. And I misspoke before. This is when we build our index dot CSHTML tomorrow, when we build that, that's when you're going to see all the stuff on the side. I'm not worried about this at all. That's just garbage anyway. But I'm trying to figure out why that didn't move over to the right. So let's see. Nav bar right. That is correct. Nav item, nav link active. That's correct. Controllers home, action, and about. That's all correct. I don't know what the problem is, and maybe tomorrow with a little bit more fresh eyes, that'll help a little bit. I don't know. But I think at least we made some progress today. I mean, it was a lot of typing and a lot of stuff they have to worry about putting in here. All right. And you see when you make it smaller too, that should be coming up. The hamburger isn't working either. All right. None of these work because we have no views associated with them. So that's what we will do tomorrow is we will write all of the views for every one of these controllers that you see here, other than registration. We'll also write the about. So we'll write our home, product, technician, customer, incident, and about, those 6 things. All right. And by tomorrow, I will also make sure that I have your test and I will pass it out and go over it with you. I'm also going to give you the seed data because I've got about 40 items in there, so you don't have to type that stuff in. All right. Unless you have any questions, that's what I've got for today.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks.